Hello friends, and welcome to the Hanged Man in the Moon. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. Friends, if you are a returning visitor, you're probably thankful that the video quality is at least a little bit better than the video from yesterday. I'm sorry about that. I've got my phone back in my grubby little hands, and so I'm recording with that. In case you are new here, however, let me give you the lowdown. What is it that I am doing here? Well, every night before I go to bed, well, first off, I'm doing a deep dive. I'm doing a deep dive into a very intriguing and educational deck called the Egyptian Tarot by C.C. Zane and the Brotherhood of Light. So what I do is every night I shuffle my mass market version of the Egyptian Tarot, the color version, and I pull my daily draw card for the next day. Now, the question that I ask myself as I'm shuffling, or the question that I shuffle into the deck is, what would I benefit from giving my attention to for the following day? I pull the card, and then I pull the matching card from my out-of-print charcoal gray and white version of that same deck. And I look at the similarities, and I notice the differences. And then I ask another deck for help. I turn to the Tarot of the Holy Light by the brilliant teacher, Christine Payne-Towler. And I do a 3-card spread with that deck. It's a deck that I did a deep dive with about 7 months ago. And now I'm a little more familiar with it. So I didn't want to put it down for this 2-month deep dive. 2, I trust it, and I wanted to use it for my helper. So like I said, I do a 3-card spread. The first card is the significance of the daily draw card for me for the following day. The second card is the challenge for me, either positive or negative. And the third card is advice, significance, challenge, advice, a fairly typical 3-card spread. And then I go to bed and I wake up and I live my day. And then at the end of the day, I look back at the cards, I analyze the spread, consider how the significances, how the meanings, how the symbols either revealed themselves to me during the day or perhaps did not. And then I do this video, which is where we are. So I've got the what do we call it? The daily draw. I've got those cards. I've got both versions of that card all ready for you. Let me show them to you right now. You saw that the daily draw for me today was the 10 of Swords. And, well, let me show it to you. Yeah, here they are, both versions of the 10 of Swords. You'll notice that at the bottom, there are 4 swords forming a box, and then above there are 2 sets of 3 swords forming an upward pointing triangle. It's a beautiful image, and it makes me think of stability. It makes me think of the 7s, actually, with the square of stability beneath, and then the upward pointing, the divine inspiring, the divine reaching 3 above. The creation of 3 plus the stability of the 4 is another way to look at it. Here we've got double creation and then a stability form at the bottom. And you'll also notice at the top there is a bull. Why is there a bull? Well, in this deck, the 10 of Wands points to Taurus. Yes, I did say that correctly. Taurus, which is the domicile of Venus, from which these fixed Earth's vital attributes enter our world. And maybe you're saying, in case you're new here, what the heck? What do you mean, Taurus? Earth? This is a sword. It's not a disc. Why is there an earth element associated to swords? Well, in this deck, the swords are the earth suit. The discs are the air suit. So, very appropriately, the 10 of Swords is the fixed sign for this earth suit, which is Taurus. Right? So we got the bull. Actually, we have 2 bulls, right? There's one in this corner and there's one in this corner in both of the decks. And so when I first saw this card, frankly, I personally like 10s. I see the idea, the potential for change, but I also see the 10 reducing to 1, the monad. So I like 10s a lot, but I also know that in tarot, 10s can be rather challenging as well. So, and I also like Taurus. Why? Don't ask me why. I just like Taurus. I think it's a really cool sign. Yes, it's a little bit slow, but Taurus enjoys the sensual, enjoys the senses, enjoys sensing the world around them, enjoys exploring the world around them, enjoys doing regular tasks as well, and enjoys going their own way. And I like those things. But that's not exactly what the Ten of Swords really points to specifically according to the guidebooks. Let me give you the rundown according to the guidebook. There are some very challenging things right at the beginning. Yeah? Sudden loss of employment. Yikes, didn't like seeing that. Expose leading to practical changes. That's not so bad. I don't like the idea of so much being exposed, expose, but still, leading some changes might be beneficial. They could be detrimental as well. Static conditions in personal affairs, that seems appropriate for the day. I mean, even in anticipation, that seemed appropriate for the day. Agitation upsets balance, a series of gains and losses. I didn't anticipate any of that happening. Unconventional actions. Yeah, maybe victim of eccentric afflictions. That seemed really out of left field. But then, why did, yes, why did this come to mind? When I woke up this morning and I didn't have a phone, and I was just thinking random thoughts, for some reason, the thought, throw a rune came to me before I took my shower. So because this was such an oddly random thought, I thought, okay, why not? So I threw my runes until one of them was left, facing down. And so that was my daily draw of a rune. It was Haglas. And Haglas, if you know, is not the most uplifting of runes. It's not the happiest of runes. Haglas is the rune for ice and hail, hail. Also ice. And the destructive, the sudden, unpredictable, and inescapable destructiveness of nature. Destructive forces of nature and of the unconscious as well. And so I was thinking, crap, what is today going to be about? But there's also the possibility of inner harmony, which is interesting. So I wanted to lean into that inner harmony, but associated with this Ten of Wands, I was thinking, okay, something drastic might happen today. I don't know. But let me continue with the significances according to the guidebook. Faith helps in times of discouragement. Okay. Adaptation to environment. Okay, that sounds good. Break stubborn habits. That's a piece of advice. Yeah, to break your stubborn habits. That could be very applicable to me. Seems like a good piece of advice for Taurus as well. You could be your own worst enemy. That could very well apply to me. Those last 3 or 4 things, one more that I unconsciously skipped right over. Hypersensitivity demands control. Those last 4 things seemed like they had potential application to me. And so, of course, I also have my daily draw, my 3-card spread that would help me unpack this card of the 10 of Swords. And so, let me show you those cards right now. The 3 cards you just saw from left to right were the Ace of Discs, another Earth. In this deck, this is an Earth suit. The Ace of Discs, the 5 of Cups, and then the the King of Swords. So we had Earth, Water, and Air. Because the Tarot of the Holy Light is structured very similar to most other tarots. Yeah, the discs are Earth, the swords are air in this deck. So we started off with the Ace of Discs, which filled the position of helping me to unpack, to show the significance of my daily draw card for me the next day. So a very positive card, right? Ace of Discs. Let me show it to you upright. A beautiful card. We've got this, what looks like maybe a sunflower to me, but it's a disc, a golden sun-like disc with an eye in the center, and it seems to be growing up out of the ground. Yeah, there are star flowers at the bottom, and there are clouds above. The moon is also beneath, and there are two sets of flowers growing up on either side of the central disc, right? And you see at the bottom, we have Capricorn and Saturn. Those are the significances of this card. Why? Because the Ace of Discs points to the Capricorn decanate of Capricorn and its subruler, Saturn, from which the cardinal aspect of cardinal Earth's vital attributes enter our world. So here instead of Taurus, we've got Capricorn. And because it is the first decanate, yeah, it is the other association is the domicile, which is of course also Saturn in Capricorn. So very simple, very straightforward associations here. And Saturn likes being in Capricorn. Capricorn likes having Saturn be there. So the Ace of Discs points to fairly clear things, such as a single step toward a goal. It's not the entire journey. It's not something coming to fruition. It's the first step. It's like if we imagine the Ace of Pentacles from Pamela Coleman Smith's art, you remember seeing the large disc up in the air, and it seems to be in a garden, and in the background we see a gate leading out to perhaps a path that leads out, and there are mountains in the background. So that disc is not the end of the journey, but the gateway to the beginning of a journey, the gateway to the beginning, right? So this is the first step of a journey that will continue on if we continue moving in that direction. It also tells us to study the order of circumstances that currently exist. Now, a lot of people see the Page of Pentacles as a student of nature, a student of experimentation and looking at things and searching around for information, searching around for stuff and how to use that stuff, that kind of a student. We get a little bit of that here in the Ace of Coins as well. The suggestion to study the circumstances as they are. And that will help teach us where to go, perhaps, how to go, what to carry with us. Also action, taking charge of events, striving to complete earthly tasks. Now, this is not a passive kind of scenario beginning. We're not sitting in the car and waiting to be taken somewhere, right? We're asked to be active in our journey, to participate in our journey. And being Capricorn, it's also the end of the driveway. The zodiac has two paths, beginning with Saturn coming down into the moon on the wet way, and then beginning with the sun, Leo, and then moving back up to Saturn again in Capricorn, the dry way. So this is the end of the dry way. But it's also the beginning of the return of the light. Now, Capricorn begins the day after the winter solstice. So we've got the beginning of the return of the light. We see the beginnings of hope. We've completed the rise into the return to the divine from the material. Now we've given and we've given and we've given, and now it's time to begin the new journey. If that makes sense? So that's helping me unpack that 10 of Swords, which is, again, the 10 of an earth suit. So what did that make me think then? Well, Those things like do not abandon but keep trying from the Ace of Swords seemed a little bit clearer, right? Struggle leading to reform. Struggle doesn't have to be struggle like, struggle, but journey perhaps leading to reform. Adaptation to the environment, adaptation to what is. And make you be breaking stubborn habits, which could be keeping me where I have been instead of allowing me to move forward. Those are some things that came to mind as I considered that Ace of Discs unpacking the Ten of Swords for me. The Saturn in Capricorn helping me to understand more fully how Taurus is affecting my day today. And so we also had the challenge card, right? The challenge card was the Five of Cups. And let me show you this card right here. It's a beautiful card. We have this large vessel being held by perhaps divine hands, pouring an abundance of water into the cups. And you'll see that the water is so abundant that two of the cups, only two of them, have been knocked over. And they're the small cups. Now the big cups are still standing. We got the sun in the background. We see some water overflowing, but that water that is overflowing is not wasted water. Yeah, it's feeding that garden, that lush garden around the cups. And you see at the bottom that the association here is the moon in Scorpio. The moon and Scorpio. Why? Because the Five of Cups points to the Cancer decadent of Scorpio and its subruler, the moon, from which the cardinal aspect of fixed water's vital attributes enter our world. So here we have the Cancer decadent of Scorpio. Scorpio, by the way, is my ascending sign, just in case you're curious. And so, yeah, the Scorpio's got a house reserved for his or their partner, Cancer, which is the domicile of the moon. So the moon is radiating through the Cancer decadent of Scorpio into our lives, into our charts, into the answer to the question of what is my challenge for me for the next day? And so the challenge is the moon being in my ascending house, perhaps. But because it is the third decadent, yes, the Five of Cups in this decadent refers to the Five of Cups in this deck refers to the third decadent, because each sign has three decadents, three sets of 10 degrees, right? The third decadent of Scorpio, which is Cancer, but it's also indicating an exaltation, being upright. It's the exaltation of Mars in, guess what sign? Capricorn. So we've got Capricorn again, yeah? But here we have Mars in Capricorn. Mars, we'll get to that in just a second. But first we've got the moon shining through the Cancer of Scorpio. Scorpio, the hard fixedness. But we've got the cardinal aspect, the moving forward, pointing towards of the cardinal aspect, cardinal emotional and intuitive and psychic and accepting element through the fixed, hard diamond-likeness of Scorpio, right? So we've got this influx of emotions, which may be overwhelming. Yeah, like I said, that water is not wasted. That overabundance of water is not wasted, but it could be a bit overwhelming for the individual. For each one of the cups, it could be a little bit overwhelming. So what is collected in these cups is more than sufficient, which is a little different from what we would often think of with a Five of Cups in, for example, a deck drawn by Pamela Coleman Smith, where we've got the figure, their back, looking at these three spilled cups with a visual cue of great disappointment. And that could be this card reversed, right? But upright, we still have that potential for overwhelm of influx of water, of psychic information, of emotion, and yet we're still standing. Mostly we're still standing. And what is spilled is feeding other people around us, is feeding the environment. So this could also be a creative approach which could help us find advantages that may not be clearly visible in the current environment. Yeah, so that Scorpio desire to inspect what's going on, to feel for what's going on, can benefit us here in this environment of unclear resources, unclear support, unclear possibilities. And so we have that. But we also have, like I said, we also have Mars in Capricorn. Again, Capricorn is repeated as a challenge for me. And what does that mean? Well, again, Capricorn is the beginning of the return of light, right? So Mars is asked to focus here, to focus on things that will bear fruit in the spring, rather than rushing forward as Mars tends to want to do. For example, Mars also likes being in Scorpio, pointing forward and figuring things out and moving ahead and feeling it. Yeah, Mars here in Capricorn is asked to focus on the future, but on things that will bear fruit in the future. So Mars is asked to perform a little bit of delayed gratification in Capricorn. The benefits come to those who have invested time and forethought. So take time to shape the future. Mars is asked to hold your horses. You've used that energy to create what will be rather than driving ahead to do it, right? And Mars can kind of swing with that because Mars is also comfortable in Scorpio. So it's not that far-fetched a possibility for Mars. That's why it's an exaltation and not a fall. Mars gets more power when he's asked to hold off and focus on what he will do, rather than rushing ahead to do it, which could also drain a little bit of Mars's energy, right? So that is, I think, the positive challenge of this card: to plan for the future, to plant the seeds that will grow, to take time to focus on what will be beneficial for me in the future. Because that Ten of Swords is, again, the end of a cycle too, right? So we'll be beginning that, which would be, okay, so we're translating decks here. So this Ten of Swords, this Ten of Earth, is the end of a cycle and will move again to the Ace of Earth, which was my unpacking card, right? And so the challenge is to plan for that and to search for the resources in the environment right now, and to accept the amount of water that is available to me and allow the excess to flow into the environment to nourish those things that I'm perhaps looking for. Right? Does that make sense? And so the advice here is to King of Swords myself. Another allusion to Saturn. Now, because the King of Swords, look at this beautiful figure here. This beautiful, beautiful, beautiful figure is standing with a disc in front of a disc. But this is Saturn this is Aquarius, I should say. So the King of Swords points to Aquarius, which is the domicile of Saturn, from which these fixed air's vital attributes enter our world. Fixed air, but with the help of Saturn, which we had, again, in here. Now we had Saturn in Capricorn. Here we have Saturn in Aquarius as being the advice. So to be able to perform my Saturn in Capricorn, yes, it's backward facing, but they are partners. I believe they are partners. And so in order to begin or to fulfill my Saturn in Capricorn potential, I'm asked to become or to take on some of the attributes of the King of Swords, I believe. And let's see. there's this disc behind the King of Swords I'd like to bring up right now. There's Latin up there. And that Latin says, translated, by the conversion of elements and the threefold purification, let the one be made. The one be made. The one be made. Let me do that once more. The one be made. Yeah? And they kind of echo each other, don't they? This disc and this disc in the back. So I think this is asking me to use my knowledge of elements and the threefold purification of perhaps, what am I reaching for? I'm reaching for cardinal, fixed, and mutable energies. Yeah, kind of an astrological construct in order to reach for and to make the one, the ace of here for me would be discs, which is another which is another Saturn domicile. So this is the beginning of the wet way, right? This is the beginning of the path back down into the earth with Cancer. So who is the king? The king is the adjudicator, the wise judge, the lawyer, the mediator. Yeah, okay, but those things didn't seem, even thinking ahead, those things didn't really seem to be significant for me. That's it, significant for me for this day. The keeper of social, psychological, and spiritual laws, okay. But that didn't really seem to ring true for me either. However, this next bit did feel like it would ring true. Look past surface details to understand motivations and significances. And this king is high. You see the clouds beneath the king? Yeah? That's a reference to the King of Swords being above personal agitation. Those unconscious waves and tornadoes and typhoons and tsunamis that can happen in the unconscious. The king is above that because he's in the realm of mind, of elevated mind. He gathers information. Because he has a clear view, he can gather information for himself, which is, again, remember, asking to look around for resources, gather information. One of those resources could be information for me. Remember the ace, we're asked to study the order of circumstances that currently exist. Well, part of that is gathering information in the ace of swords, in the King of Swords. So there's a thread here that I think is winding through these cards, right? Don't abandon, keep trying. Adaptation to the environment. This environment that I'm being asked to search around in the Ace of Discs. Careful of hypersensitivity. Breaking stubborn habits. And the advice is to rise above those things as the Ace of Swords. And so what I want to do is accept what is being offered to me to the extent that I can and allow the rest to flow out around me. That's okay in the Five of Cups, but also to plan for the next step, to plant the seeds that will grow. And again, look past surface details to understand the motivations and significances, and stay above that personal agitation, which may have been indicated in that 10 of Swords, the 10 of Earth suit from the daily draw card. Does that make sense? I mean, now that I'm weaving this message together, this is at the end of the day. And I'm weeding out the things that don't seem to match the way the day has gone for me, right? So how has the day gone for me? It's been a decent day. It hasn't been one of fraught with turmoil. I didn't lose my job. I continued working on and pretty much finished organizing my library of tarot and oracle decks. I tackled my oracle decks as well. Oracle being those things which are not of the tarot structure. And in oracle decks, I'm including things like Lenormand, Kipper, Sybil, and then other things that we think of as oracle decks. I was really surprised to notice how many astrology-based oracle decks that I have in my library. I hadn't really paid too much attention to their numbers in different categories up until now. But now when I was trying to categorize them and I separated them, I noticed that, wow, there's a big stack of there that was astrology-based, which is interesting considering I have been resisting studying astrology, and being dragged into the study of astrology, kicking and screaming up until now. But so yeah, unconsciously, apparently, I was realizing that astrology is going to be important in my practice as I move forward. And so I've got a stack of like 5 or 6 oracle decks based on astrology, cycles of the moon. There's also one of based on sacred geometry, which is adjacent, I think, to astrology. Different, very different, but still. So I continued that, and I pretty much got it done. I've still got to do a little bit of typing to enter it into the stuff into my lists. But yeah, that's pretty much done. I had two very good and I think significant conversations today as well. One with the magnificent Christine Payne-Towler. I finally got the urge to ask about the concept of houses and which construct is the most beneficial to think of, because people have different ways of describing houses. And I was just reading a book which was written by the Count de Saint-Germain, but this Count de Saint-Germain is different from the Count Germain, which was a man who lived in the 1700s. The Count de Saint-Germain is a person who I think took his name as the immortal being and wrote a book, I think in the 1800s, in which there was drawn a set of tarot cards, an Egyptian tarot. And that's the reason why I wanted to read that book, to see the book around the cards that he drew, and which were eventually published into a deck, maybe, but then were taken for, or were became the tradition which gave us the C.C. Zane Egyptian Tarot. Now, it's not a direct line, but it is a circuitous path from there to the Egyptian Tarot here by C.C. Zane, and also the Egyptian Tarot drawn by Stuart Kaplan, and also a couple of other Egyptian Tarots. Anyway, so that's the reason why I was looking at that book. And in that book, Count de Saint-Germain explains how important astrology is and how tarot is linked with astrology. And he gives a description of how to understand houses, which is very different from one of the ones that I learned and another one that I've heard of. So I was like, well, which is right, or which is the most beneficial? And so Christine Payne-Towler set me straight, and I understood. And I actually have seen my chart drawn in such a way that expresses the concept of houses that Christine Payne-Towler explained to me today. So that was a really interesting and very enlightening conversation, I believe, and has helped clear up some of my confusion around the idea of houses. So there was that, a very profitable conversation on my part. And very wonderful volunteer work on the part of Christine Payne-Towler. Also, I had another conversation with a friend who is studying, I don't want to say Korean astrology, although astrology is a kind of component to the what's called Saju Myung something hak. Saju Myung something hak, and that something has flown from my head right now. But it's the 4 pillars of destiny is one translation into English, and it's about the planets and the elements and how they interact and how each one of us, depending on where we were born, when we were born, those elements are in different proportions. But it's not only elements. In Korea, there are 5 elements, and also in China, there are 5 elements, and Japan. Instead of fire, water, air, earth, with spirit being the 5th, we have 5 elements of, let me get them from the beginning. They are fire, water, fire, su, mok, gum, to. Okay, fire, water, wood, metal, and then earth. Again, they are fire, water, wood, metal, or gold, and then earth. Those are the 5 elements of the East. So there's no air, there's no air. And instead there are metal and wood, which is interesting, right? And then the 7 classical planets as well are, but instead they focus on 5. They focus on Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Those are the 5 that they focus on. They don't really focus too much on the moon or the sun in their system. So it's a different way of organizing information, but he's studying that. And so I talked to him about that, and I asked for his birth information, and I went to a site and generated a chart, and I asked him what he would say for my characteristics in the system that he's studying. And apparently, according to them, I have no water, I have a lot of earth, and I'm fire, which makes a little bit of sense because my sun sign is Leo, so which is a fire sign. But I'm not Leo here. I'm a wood dragon, so there's that too. I mean, the systems are very, very different. But according to the East, I have no water. According to the West, I've got a bunch of water. I'm pretty well balanced, I think, in the West. In the East, not so much. In the East, I'm also Shikshin, which is somebody who's very curious and always trying to explore things around them, which is pretty accurate. So anyways, we had that kind of discussion today as well. So very profitable discussions, as well as organizing my stuff, planning for my future. But those discussions I had were also, I think, planning for my future as well, because I think they, at least the Western part, the part that I am going to focus on, is going to definitely expand my practice of reading tarot. I'm sure of that. So that makes sense, right? These cards do seem to reveal themselves to me in today's activities and experiences, from that 10 of Swords right down to the King of Swords. That first swords being an earth and the last swords being an air, but still, right? That makes sense, doesn't it? If it does make sense, let me know in the comments below. If it does not make sense, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. What do you think? Oh, also, if you want a reading from me, my email address is below. Send me an email to thehangedmaninthemoon@gmail.com. We'll get you a reading. If you want these decks, you can purchase the color version of the Egyptian Tarot, and I highly recommend it. It has helped me, has continued to help me expand my ability to incorporate astrology into my reading of Tarot, which that journey began with this deck, which is also available. I have a link to Christine Payne-Towler's site below. I highly recommend this one as well. I would recommend this being your starter deck, because this system is the Continental Tarot system, but still it's a little bit more in tune, I think, with what most of us are used to reading. Differences, big differences, huge differences, and yet there are some echoes, more echoes, I think, than there are between this deck and, for example, a Rider-Waite-Smith deck, which are also very different. So I would suggest using this as your gateway drug. And then moving to this one if you start getting a handle on this deck, then being able to move into the Egyptian Tarot, which is interesting because for the creator of this deck, this was the deck that she says she cut her teeth on. So you could start with this deck, I believe, certainly. But for me, I would suggest starting here. That's just me. So I've got the links below. Also, if you are still here, hit that thumbs up button. It helps the channel. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and hit the alarm bell so you get notifications of when I upload videos. And again, comment below. I would really, really love to hear from you. And friends, now, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.